Well, even though it's already October 20th, it doesn't seem like we have the Halloween event yet. This is kind of weird. Trove always ends up having their events or updates or whatever on a Tuesday, and this week's Tuesday is already here. So I guess that means we're getting the Halloween event maybe next week? Or maybe they're waiting for the hub update to go on consoles because they have been hinting that they're going to be releasing that soon. Maybe that was already today and I just didn't notice. But anyways, what's up, gamers? We back again for some more Trove. And today we're gonna kind of, I don't know, I guess we're gonna be talking about the elephant in the room, but also just a couple other things. It's just gonna end up being kind of a more chill video, kind of a more relaxed, let's just hang out together kind of thing. I guess I could be doing dungeons while I am doing this, because why not? Because I don't want to do delves right now. Another thing too I want to mention to you guys before we get started is that there's actually a huge, and I mean huge, sale on like mounts and wings and stuff that's going to be in the store. And if you actually have a, if you ever want to participate in that, but you happen to also be a new Trove player, there's actually a sign up link that's down in the description, and then anything you end up buying out of the cash shop, since you've signed up with that link, I'll end up making a percentage of it. It really does help pay the bills. It's a huge impact on my life, and I want to say thanks to Game Ago, but most of all thanks to you guys and gals watching at home who have actually gone that extra mile and done that, because I sincerely do appreciate it. Like, oh god. So anyways, like a week or two ago, let me actually see, when did I actually make this? Okay, it was only 5 days ago, rip me. But I basically asked you guys on my community tab, like, what kind of Trove tutorials you guys wanted to see, or what type of new Trove videos you guys wanted to see, because while I do personally have a big list of a bunch of other Trove content that I can end up covering and stuff like that, I thought that I would leave it up to you guys, just because I do get a lot of regular comments about do updated videos of this, do videos of that, so on and so forth. And I just kind of wanted to, I don't know, put my ear to the ground and see what responses I would end up getting from you guys, whether to not, oh, maybe you guys aren't interested in hearing how Shadow Towers are dead kind of thing. And you know what happened? We actually got some interesting comments, but most of them were jokes. Shame on you. I'm asking, like, genuinely, because I want to be able to deliver content on what you guys actually want. And on top of all of the joke comments, we also ended up getting a lot of comments of people asking for tutorials that I'd already done. So there was people asking for videos on can you do a video about like Trove returning players, and I already have one of those videos on the channel, legit, and I recommend that you watch it if you're a returning Trove player. I don't think there's only like maybe one or two things that it didn't cover, but for the most part it covers pretty much everything, because we haven't really had any big significant updates to Trove lately. And the most recent update is actually including the hub update, which I would argue isn't really that big of a deal. Like, it's like, even though it's cool, it's like, how much content is there really there in terms of the gameplay, and even for stuff that I can end up covering? Like, it was pretty underwhelming to be like, oh, hey, here's the new hub. Yup, that's it. But more particularly, the comment that I wanted to focus on today, and I'm not saying that I won't, make tutorials on some of your guys' suggestions, because I did end up getting some actual good suggestions where, people asking for updated videos on light, people asking for updated flux farming tutorials, even though flux farming hasn't actually changed significantly, like, at all since last year. People even questioning, is it still really good to farm nitro? Yeah. Nitro is the one recurring resource that I always just as a go-to mention when you're trying to farm flux, only because it's the one resource that actually has a good pool in the game. Like, it's a continual resource you need to upgrade crystal gear, which I would argue is one of the problems with Trove, is that a lot of the resources you will slowly just not need. Nitro is something you're always gonna need. Yeah, but anyways, the topic that I chose to discuss today, which you probably already saw the title, is this one that says, what do you think Trove needs and what keeps you playing? because I've talked about this extensively in live streams and stuff like that, but I know that a lot of you guys and gals can't end up watching the live streams just because of time distance or whatever. Time difference. It's kind of the same thing though when you think about it, but most of all because a lot of you don't want to sit through an hour-long stream where I'm basically just running delves or doing like the same old stuff. So I thought it was an interesting topic that we could get going and, you know, just kind of mention today. So as far as what do I think Trove needs, it's a very tough call because of how long I've played this game, but generally speaking, when it comes to how I enjoy video games, I've been pondering a lot in terms of just the games that I've played in general, and just gaming as a whole, the game loop. This is a term that lots of people, if you're unfamiliar with it, the game loop is quite literally what we're doing right now, the loop of the gameplay, because basically every game in existence has its own game loop, you know, where you're just going to end up doing the same thing over and over again, outside of maybe a couple other wrinkles that will end up changing the gameplay. And in Trove's instance, this is the game loop. It is quite literally either doing dungeons over and over again, which is a very fun game loop, arguably. I really do enjoy it. And then the delves, which is kind of a crappier version of that, honestly speaking, where we are literally just doing the same thing that we're doing right now, where we're doing dungeons, but it's all claustrophobic and inside caves, and the objectives are a little bit more specific, and it just generally is not as fun. But unfortunately, they lock a lot of very specific gear and collectibles behind it, because if you think about it, Trove basically is just a giant collectathon. That is the main incentive of the game next to leveling up your characters. And personally, if I had to choose anything that I think the game should focus on, is never mind all this other crap about, like, you know, new biomes would be appreciated, and you know, new dungeons and stuff like that. But as far as I am concerned with Trove, there's only so many ways that you can end up repainting what already exists, which is just the biomes and the dungeons and stuff. And as far as I know, the game itself only has a limited amount of, I don't know if I'd say memory is the right word, but it basically has a limited amount of custom dungeons that it can entail. I know this just because over the years, they will end up adding a dungeon to the game, and you'll notice that maybe one or two other dungeons that you used to end up frequenting don't exist anymore. And I can only assume that's because Trove itself can only have a handful of dungeons in the game at one time, maybe dependent on the world or whatever. So ultimately, I would say new classes is the biggest pull that they should just be focusing on. Lots of people would ask, you know, what about rebalancing classes? And to that, I would argue, if they are constantly adding new classes to the game, like think of something like League of Legends, where there's just so many characters in the game and so many favorites that people have, that it doesn't really matter about balancing, because some of them are just gonna be good and then others just aren't, because certain abilities might just be better than others regardless of the stat numbers. Now, I'm not saying that the characters don't deserve to end up having their buffs, you know, like I got a lot of video, or a lot of comments from you guys and gals when I made my video that was a tier list of my favorite classes in the game. A lot of you were actually talking about the Chloromancer and how you really wanted to have a rework to that character, and I strongly agree with that. Probably even more so than any other class in the game. I think that the Chloromancer deserves the most work. But as far as my favorites are concerned, you know, I'd like to have Shadowhunter as a more powerful character and blah blah blah. But all of that pushed aside, if they were constantly adding new characters, I don't think anyone would care, because everyone would just be so focused in on the new stuff that they wouldn't really be as bothered by what currently exists in the game and is ultimately broken, you know? So I think if they just started focusing on more classes, that would just be a really good step in the right direction for the game. If they just poured all their resources into it, because also for somebody like me, you know, where I've got virtually everything in the game. I'm missing like maybe a handful of items in the game that I just can't bother to, you know, I can't be bothered to end up grinding it just because of how tedious and how dumb it is, because for some reason it is Trove's obsession to not have any of these items actually tradable, which means that you yourself as a player have to put in hundreds and hundreds of hours to get one specific item that some new player just gets on their first Leviathan, like a permanent torch or something, right? My point is, there's a little too much RNG, random number generation, going on with the drops in the game that does not complement the fact that so many of the end game items, especially the items that I'm missing, are items that are untradeable. But anyways, I still strongly think that new classes would just be something that would be able to distract in a way, because I honestly don't know what else they could end up doing to improve the game, other than making a funner game loop. That's for sure. You know, Delves kind of came out as the, I don't know, a replacement to Shadow Towers that was ultimately supposed to end up making Trove servers a bit more stable, just because of the, you know, with Shadow Towers it was constantly creating new worlds. With the Delves it's just one procedural world that's constantly generating more and more deeper floors, and it ended up I feel affecting the game in a very positive impact, even if the game loop of the Delves themselves is not very interesting to a lot of people. Oh, hey, we got a Crystal 3 hat that I don't need. And that's the thing, like, even for me, I don't dislike the Delves by any means. It's just that I would argue doing dungeons like we're doing right now is a lot funner. Because another thing, too, that I've noticed is, you know, they add, like, Delves or whatever else to the game. Even newer dungeons, that's a prime example, just newer type of content. Like, you'll notice that you can't blast your way through most of it with bombs, and a lot of the player freedom has slowly been chipped away over the years, and I feel that that's something that they could really address. But I don't know if they ever will, because I don't think that the Trove developers are thinking in that way. For somebody like me, and this is just more of a personal level, I'm not a game developer, okay? So it's not like I know what goes into game development, but I am all about community. And this is me moving into my next point as to why I keep playing Trove. Because of the community, because of you guys, okay? Like, I've been playing Trove for such a long time, and, you know, there's been countless times where I just am either bored of it or just not as interested. Even over these past couple days, you may have noticed that the Trove content has been a little bit lacking, and that's just because I've been kind of taking a break. I've been playing other games that I find more enjoyable, but I know that I'm always going to end up going back to Trove, especially when they end up adding updates that are actually worthwhile instead of the hub update, which I do feel did deserve to be in the game, because the game itself did such a terrible job introducing new players into this universe, into, you know, the gameplay, and just there was no real tutorial to speak of or anything outside of just the one tutorial area. Then it just throws you in the world like, hey, go do stuff. And so because of that, I feel like the hub area was necessary and the new quest lines are necessary, but it's not exciting, especially for somebody like me, where it doesn't really affect me. And most of us, I think, can say that it didn't really affect us at all. It's only going to affect new players. But the thing is, you gotta have some new content that's going to end up enticing and exciting new players, and a new tutorial hub area isn't really doing that. Now, my theory is that Game Ago, if you guys and gals haven't already noticed, has been doing a stellar job refining Trove. So they've been refining a lot of stuff that's already been in the game for a very long time, changing descriptions of things, adding new quest lines and tutorials and stuff to end up basically helping new players and making the new player experience a lot better. And I am hoping, I am very hopeful that the reason for all of this is because then they want to get everything a little bit under control, and then they're going to end up revealing something big. They're going to start actually working on like some big game-changing updates that's either going to add some mid to end game stuff that will hopefully end up making things a little bit more exciting and a little bit more, you know, crazy for new players. Or it could just end up being new classes, which in all honesty, again, is a good enough drive, because new classes means that people are going to be more than likely to just buy the packs that they end up adding in the store that gives you the class and a couple costumes, what have you. And just generally speaking, it's been so long since we ended up getting new classes consistently. Like, I remember when I first started playing Trove, one of the things that was most exciting was whenever a new class came out. And even if a character came out that I didn't really enjoy, like the Fey Trickster, which I absolutely hate. I know a lot of you like the Fey Trickster, okay? This is just my opinion. But when that character came out, it was still exciting to see something new. And a lot of the times back in the day when classes ended up getting added to the game, they usually ended up coming with a new biome, which kind of ended up happening with the Vanguard, but the Vanguard was a bit late to the party, you know, like players, I mean, wanted a fist fighting character for a very long time. And I mean, it's nice that we ended up getting it. And the funny thing is that this character is just so fun to play and also pretty balanced. And the big reason for that balance is because this coincides with me talking about rebalancing the characters, is the developers don't really play this game. You can tell because the decisions that they make when developing new characters, Vanguard being, of course, the most recent example of that, you can just see the disconnect. Now, obviously, we've got a new set of developers on Trove that have not actually made a new class to save their life, so who knows what's going to happen with it. It remains to be seen. But I remember when the Vanguard first came out and was on the test server, those of you that were around that long will know, Vanguard kind of sucked when it first came out. Like, I don't know what jackass on the development team thinks that knockback is like a stat that should still exist in this video game. And the funny thing is that no matter how many players were criticizing the fact that the Vanguard had knockback on the punch moves, the developer's argument was it's not knock back, it's knock up, because basically you would every uppercut on the Vanguard's attacks would just throw enemies across the room into a corner, and it was just impossible to end up doing any damage to them. And it was annoying as hell, dude. So thankfully, enough people complained about it. Enough people also left a lot of feedback with the developers about, you know, the damage numbers not being very good and everything like that. And I would argue even with what the developers finally ended up with was good enough, but it wasn't perfect, because as anyone who plays with the Vanguard can attest to, your ranged mode is still pretty lackluster. It's not really good. You know, you're basically just playing this character 100% as a melee character, though it's fun to be ranged at the beginning of the game to the mid tier of the game. When it comes to end game, it's just a crappier version of like another ranged character, right? And I remember like the ranged mode actually used to be so much worse with the Vanguard, but the devs continually tweaked the character and listened to players. It didn't listen enough, I feel, because people still were telling them that the ranged mode was a bit too weak, and they just kept it, they kept doing very minor buffs to it that everyone was like, no, you gotta do a lot more. Anyways, I don't mean to go off on a tangent, okay? I just personally think that a lot more classes should be added to the game. I can come up with a lot of ideas for classes right here, right now, that we've talked about extensively. A werewolf character, similar to the Vanguard, that would end up being maybe a ranged character, Van Helsing type of guy that would be shooting with a crossbow, and then you use your ult and you transform into a werewolf, and maybe it's not a temporary thing, maybe you just stay in werewolf mode, so similar to the Vanguard, it actually has both ranged and melee, or something like that. Or how about another ranged character that ends up using a bow that has spider body, you know, like, I don't know what the heck that mythological creature is, where it's got a spider's body and then it goes up into a human torso. I personally think that Trove really is a bit too lackluster when it comes to character design, because every single character is basically just a blocky humanoid, and it kind of sucks, because all they can really do to stylize these characters from any point into the future is their silhouette of how they're standing and what their abilities are. Like Revenant, for example. Oh, he's headless. Oh yeah, that's cute. But there's just so much untapped potential with Trove that has continued to happen over the entire time that I've played this game, that I don't expect any of this. Let's be real here. As much as we might be getting hyped about all of these ideas, I'm not expecting any of them. to end up coming into the game. I mean, for crying out loud, the Tomb Raider, this costume right here, the devs had this costume equipped on the Tomb Raider during the Delves official trailer, and we still haven't gotten this costume in game. This is a mod. This costume is in the game's code. Someone basically ripped it out of the game's code and then made a mod of it so that we can use it. Now, I'm expecting that they're going to throw this costume into the Halloween pack or something that's probably going to be coming out next week. But the fact that it's taken this long for just one costume for the Tomb Raider is asinine. And that is just Trove in a nutshell for its development, is it takes super duper long for anything to end up being added. I guess what I'm trying to say is just make Trove 2 already. And do it with RTX on, please. So in closing, again, the second part of the question was, why do I keep playing it? And a lot of it is just because I've played it for so long that I can't see myself not playing it. It's also where the majority of you guys and gals are from. Like, Trove was very good to me over the years and kind of ended up blowing up my channel in a very big way, even if, you know, we're not really bringing as many new people in, just because Trove doesn't really bring new people in. But generally speaking, I think that there's nothing like it. Trove, to me, is still one of the best MMO games that there is, because you got to think about it, this is an online MMORPG. What do we have for comparison that has such a quick, gratifying action combat system? You know, other MMO games like World of Warcraft have that kind of RTS, well, maybe not RTS, but that kind of cooldown battle system where you're using like 500 macros and you click on a character to target them, and then you tell your character to initiate the attack. And to me personally, I don't like that type of combat as much, because it feels like the character that I'm controlling is a character I'm controlling in the universe, rather than me having direct control over this character and enjoying that quick instant response, where if something goes wrong, I know that it's my fault. If something goes right, I know that it's my fault, you know? So hopefully I was able to clarify a lot of what we set out to talk about today. Ultimately, I guess the translation didn't read is just add new classes to the game, or I don't know, I guess change the fundamentals of the game. But honestly speaking, I think it'd be a lot easier and a lot more cost effective if they just continually poured their entire resources of Trove into having a lot of the yearly events. I think that they could just be repeatable at this point. Maybe have an event a month that is just, you know, they don't need to change a lot since all the other events of the previous years or anything like that. I don't care. Like the Love Bug event that we had this year, I want to see that again next year, because it was just done so well. And I would love to see Trove continually adding stuff like that, so that the developers don't have to spend as much time and effort developing new events that nobody cares about, because all an event is just log in, do it, get the items, log out, right? I want new classes. I want a level cap increase. I want reasons to log in and start grinding, because I personally feel that that is the best aspect of Trove. And I think that's one of the big reasons why I haven't been as interested in playing it as much, especially lately. Because we got Genshin Impact, another game where I'm just grinding and doing the same thing that I'm doing in Trove, but I'm at the beginning of the game. So grinding and getting characters strong actually serves a purpose. Or like the Ghost of Tsushima multiplayer update, where I'm literally just grinding levels over and over. Like, I love grinding in video games. The problem is that I have almost everything in Trove, and even though I do have an alternate account that's free to play, and yes, technically speaking, I can just grind that character instead of my main account, it's not the same, man. It doesn't have the same appeal to me. Now, that said, I want to be very clear, because I know some idiot is going to be in the comments like, it sounds like he's quitting Trove. I'm not quitting Trove, okay? I've just been taking a bit of a break. This happens consistently throughout my time with this game, is sometimes I just want to play something else. Oh, servers are coming back on. Could this be the Halloween update we've been waiting for? But anyways, I hope this video wasn't too preachy for you guys or anything. I just was kind of in a certain mood. There's still lots of other videos that I can end up making on Trove, but I just want to share my appreciation that you guys have been so patient, because I know that I haven't had Trove in a couple days, and generally it's been very inconsistent on the channel. But again, it's just because I'm enjoying these other games wholeheartedly right now. It's not like I'm leaving Trove for permanence, or, you know, for keeps or anything like that. I still am gonna keep playing Trove probably until the day I die. Just kidding. Give me Trove 2. Thanks for watching. Smash the like, sub for more. Buy the merch you want to support the channel. We got new merch as well. I can't show you guys it because I don't physically have it yet, but I did order it. But I do have some new merch that is based on the new logo. I went a little bit more subtle with it. So rather than a big logo on the shirt, I just kind of did like a smaller, kind of a more like, I guess, brand logo on some of the stuff that I have in the shop. We also finally have zip up hoodies. So I ordered myself one of those because I love zip up hoodies. I hate pullover hoodies. They just bother me. But anyways, it's thanks to all of you guys and gals watching that we can even be at this point in the first place. Let's get that 200K gamers so that when YouTube ends up actually clearing inactive YouTube accounts, we don't go back down to 180K again. Bye.